Welcome to another night of spine-chilling stories. If you're ready for some creepy tales that will make you second-guess the world around you, you're in the right place. Make sure to grab a blanket and turn off the lights because tonight, we're diving into stories that will leave you looking over your shoulder. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell so you won't miss any of the scary stories we've got lined up for you. 1. The mirror's reflection. One quiet evening, Sarah was cleaning out her attic when she found an old, dusty mirror hidden behind a stack of boxes. Intrigued, she wiped away the dirt, revealing a shiny surface. As she gazed into it, she noticed her reflection wasn't quite right. Her own reflection was smirking at her, something Sarah hadn't done. Thinking it was just her imagination, she turned around, but no one was there. When she looked back at the mirror, her reflection was smiling wider. Sarah couldn't move. It felt like the reflection was mocking her. The next morning, the mirror had mysteriously vanished. But every reflective surface she passed showed the same twisted version of herself, still smiling at her. No one ever found the mirror, but Sarah couldn't escape the feeling that her reflection was always watching. If you ever see an unfamiliar smile in the mirror, it might not be your own. 2. The phone call. Late one night, Mark's phone rang. The number was blocked, but he answered anyway. A raspy voice on the other end whispered, "I'm watching you." His heart raced, but he hung up quickly, thinking it was a prank. But the calls kept coming, every night at the same time. The voice grew more distinct, more taunting, and it always said the same thing. "I'm watching you." One night, Mark decided to ignore it, thinking it was just his imagination. But when he woke up the next morning, something strange happened. His phone was full of voicemails from his own number. Each one began with the same words, "I'm watching you." Mark never figured out who was behind the calls, but from that day forward, he never answered his phone at night again. Sometimes, the scariest things come from the places we least expect. 3. The whispering walls. Emma had just moved into a beautiful old house on the outskirts of town. It was cheap, and the landlord was in a hurry to rent it out. On the first night, Emma heard strange whispers coming from the walls. She thought it was just the house settling, but each night, the whispers grew louder. By the fourth night, the whispers were impossible to ignore. Desperate for answers, Emma started ripping up the floorboards to see if there was something hidden beneath. That's when she found a stack of old, faded letters. The last one was addressed to her. It read, "If you stay in this house, you will become part of the whispers." The next day, Emma packed her bags and left. No one ever heard from her again. Some houses have stories that don't end when the front door closes. 4. The midnight knock. Tom was sitting in his apartment late at night when he heard a knock on the door. He wasn't expecting anyone, but he got up to check anyway. When he opened the door, there was nothing there, just a single red rose on the doorstep. Tom felt uneasy but shrugged it off. The next night, the knock came again. He opened the door and found another rose. This time, there was a note attached. "I'll be waiting for you." Tom was scared but couldn't stop himself from looking out the door the next night. When he opened it, the roses had stopped, but the message on the door read, "You should have never opened it." The roses never came again, but every night, Tom could still hear the soft knock at his door. It never stopped. 5. The shadow in the window. Lily lived alone in an old house she'd just moved into. One night, she noticed a shadow moving across her window. At first, she thought it was just the wind, but then the shadow pressed against the glass, staring inside. She quickly turned around to make sure no one was behind her, but when she turned back, the shadow was still there, and it seemed to be smiling. She froze. The next morning, Lily checked the window. There was no sign of the shadow, but it didn't matter, because Lily never left the house again. Some shadows never go away, and sometimes they follow you home. 6. The empty room. Sarah rented a house with a locked room. The landlord warned her not to open it, but one night, she picked the lock and opened the door. Inside was nothing but old, faded photographs hanging on the walls. They all showed previous tenants, but their eyes were all scratched out. The last photo was different. It was of Sarah with her eyes scratched out, and a note beneath it that read, "You're next." Sarah moved out the next day, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the room was still waiting for her. 7. The footsteps in the snow. Mark woke up to a fresh blanket of snow covering his cabin. As he stepped outside, he noticed a set of footprints leading to his doorstep. Curious, he followed the tracks, but when he reached the end, the footprints stopped. No one was there. But as he turned around, fresh footprints appeared behind him. They were moving faster. The next thing Mark knew, someone, or something, was breathing down his neck. Mark never made it back to the cabin. The footprints were all that was found. 8. The forgotten child. Samantha was cleaning her house when she found an old, dusty toy under her bed. It looked like something her niece might have left behind, but when she asked, her niece said she didn't recognize it. Later that night, Samantha heard a child's laughter from the closet. She opened it to find it empty, but the sound of giggling continued, echoing around the room. Terrified, Samantha slammed the door shut and never opened it again. The next morning, Samantha found the toy back under the bed. It wasn't hers, and it wasn't the first time she'd heard the laughter. 9. The knock at midnight. Lisa was alone in her house one night when she heard a knock at the door. When she opened it, there was no one there, just an empty, moonlit street. But she noticed fresh footprints leading away into the dark. Hesitant but curious, she followed them. The footprints led her to a grave with her name on it. Beneath it, a date was etched in the stone, one that hadn't happened yet. Lisa never returned to her house after that night. The grave remained, with her name carved into the stone, waiting. 10. The man in the picture. Jessica had bought an old framed photo at a yard sale. The man in the photo looked oddly familiar, but she couldn't place where she'd seen him. That night, she woke up to find the man standing at the foot of her bed. His eyes were locked on hers, and in his hand, he held the same photo, now torn at the edges. The next morning, the photo was gone, and Jessica never saw the man again. But every time she looked in the mirror, she could swear he was still standing there, just behind her. Thanks for sticking with me through these creepy tales. If you're still feeling the chills, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that'll keep you up at night. Don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss a new video. Until next time, stay safe, and remember, sometimes it's better not to look too closely.